Welcome back to Women of the Bible, Old Testament, and this section is on Esther, Queen Esther specifically. I know many of you have probably seen the ads go out. Queen Esther's coming to the theater and all this other stuff. Make sure that you've read the book of Esther in the Bible. She is a very interesting person, and she has a lot of power behind the scenes that comes out in the forefront during her life. So let's take a quick look at Esther. Again, it's in Esther, the book of Esther, all the chapters. So bear in mind, I'm going to hit a few parts of it because it is a very long, but it's also a very good read. So make sure you've read it. Who is Esther? In Esther chapter 2, verse 7, it kind of gives us a little bit of history of who Esther is. Esther is a young lady that had lost both of her parents. They're dead. They're gone. She's being raised by her uncle, Uncle Mordecai. And the reason he's raising her is, man, is she a looker. Everybody wants her. Everybody wants her. She's one of the fairest maidens in town. And he took her in to protect her. Now, as time passes, the king sends out a decree, and all the maidens are sent to the king's home, sent to the palace. And when they get there, they're gathered into one space and given custody to them. Now, Esther is brought to the king's house to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the women. They are put in what's known as the women's section, harem, for the women. Now, she obtained kindness of the house of the keeper of the women. He helped her with her purification process. All the maids were put into this room or into this section for purification. Now, purification meaning, are they pregnant? Let's make sure they're not pregnant. Let's keep them away from all the men. They've got to be pure. And as they're going through the process, 7 maidens are selected. And it comes to be that they're placed in a specific house for these women for purification. Every day her uncle walked to that house. Mordecai walked to that house to check on her. He also wanted her to remember her people, where she came from, what was her birthright. Now, according to Esther 2, verse 12, now, when every maid's turn was come to go to the king Ahasuerus. After that, she had been 12 months. She'd been a full year in purification, in accordance to the manner of the women. Now, for so were the days of their purifications accomplished, to wit, 6 months of oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with other things for the purification of the women. So there was a lengthy process for purification. And when you look at history, they're not the only ones that had a purification process for women. So take a look at history, you'll find this. Then everyone, once the 12 months of purification is done, you're brought before the king. And then you're selected as his concubine. Okay? Not as his wife per se, but as his concubine, so that you would bear his children. Now, when they're brought to the castle from the house, they're brought into another section of the castle and given custody to Sheshgaz, which is the king's chamberlain. And the king will view all of these women and decide which ones will be his concubines and which ones will be sent away. Now, when he saw Esther, he decided that Esther was not going to be just a concubine. He actually took the crown and put it on her head and made her the Vashet, meaning queen. And that's when she became Queen Esther. Now, her role in everything that happens from here on becomes very involved. You'll notice as you're reading Esther's story that things are happening to her people, the Jewish people. And they're being tortured, they're being killed. And Mordecai is pleading with her, please go to the king, please go to the king. Now, the king at this point still has no idea of her lineage. He has no idea of who she really is. And Mordecai is begging her to petition the king to protect the people. To do this, she has to reveal who she is and face certain death herself. She fasts, she prays, she begs and pleads with God for 3 days. She repurifies herself in that 3 days. And she goes before the king. And she petitions the king, knowing that her death is imminent, knowing that she will be put to death if she does this, because the king's orders have been anyone of this particular lineage will be dead. She goes to the king. she petitions the king for help with the Jews. She petitions him to give grace and mercy. And as she's doing this, the king is seeing what is taking place. And instead of killing her, he pardons her and rescinds the orders for killing. That's a snapshot of Esther. I would say go in and really, really, really read through it. It's an interesting tale. And if you'll notice in the Bible, she's one of two, right? One of two, with actual chapters named after them. Think about it. One of two. The others are mentioned in the Bible, but we have Esther, we have Ruth, okay? And these women performed in God's mercy and vision and did what needed to be done with prayer and thought from God and with God's backing and blessings and protection. So some things to think about. The purification of 12 months. When you're reading through this, what did it do? What does it mean? Why would women purify themselves? There are two houses of the kings of harem. For the king's harem, there are the concubines, and then there's the other house. Okay? But the two houses really is the first house starts the purification, they move to the second house where the purification is completed, and then they move into the actual harem where the concubines live. Okay? Some things to really, really think about. Would you be willing to risk your life to save others? I know firefighters do it every day. The police do it every day. Medical teams do it every day. But would you really be willing to risk your life to save others? How great, you hear me say this almost every time. How great is your faith in God to open your heart and be willing to do what needs to be done. God puts me in a place where I need to be. And I know that. Do you? Do you know that? Do you know that God will put you in a spot that you need to be every day? And it may be just a little bitty thing just to stand by and smile at somebody. Or, oh wait, I don't have any change, but I do have this right here. Let me give you this. Well, sure, get in the car. Let me take you down the street. I'll take you down the street for a minute. I know you can't walk that far. Come on. Done that too. God puts us in a place for a reason, like he did with Esther. She's a strong, wonderful woman, and I ask you to read her. Next up will be the last one of the women of the Old Testament. Will be the woman and the jar of oil. And she's in Kings. And you're going to see some parallels in there. But for now, blessed be, God protect, and I'll see you next time.